And perfect. So we do want this to be as interactive as possible. So please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Get comfy. We have a great lineup of speakers. So please utilize the chat. You can hop on video and participate that way. But let us know how you like this new format. We still want to continue doing customer presentations, but what you're going to be hearing today is all from Pendo employees. So if you liked hearing these hacks and these tips and things from the Pendo side, we'll make sure that we incorporate at least one Pendo speaker at every event so we can provide you exactly what you're looking for. So we're going to go ahead. We have a great lineup. So we have Zach and Megan from the sales engineer side, Clint and Cross from our senior onboarding consultant, and Hannah, who runs our Pendo Academy. So you may have met some of these people who are speaking. So please give them a shout out. That will make them feel nice and give them a warm welcome. But we're going to go ahead and have Zach kick off. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can start presenting.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Good to see everyone. So as I'm pulling up my screen share, quick anecdote as well. Before joining Pendo, I've been at Pendo for a little over a year, and I was actually at Envision, the design prototyping tool before that, where we were Pendo customers and I used Pendo as well. So I've been in y'all seats too. So today I am going to cover what we call event properties, and then also cover polls and surveys within Pendo with a very specific use case. The overall theme of what I want to present today is about getting additional context, filling in gaps in information using Pendo. So we're going to start with event properties. These are related to both features and track events, so any backend events that you send through to Pendo. I'm going to just focus on features today. So what I'm going to do is launch the Pendo Designer in tagging mode. And if you haven't seen it before, Acme CRM, this is a demo web app that we built. So just envision this being your product. The feature or flow that I'm going to use as an example today is this create new form. So the feature that the event property I'm going to set up that it pertains to is this OK button. So going to surface every time someone has submitted this create new form. But let's say that we want additional context and want to capture additional information that exists within our product when someone submits this form. So I can do that through setting up an event property. So I'm going to go and you have to specifically enable event properties because there's some security ramifications on giving Pendo permission to capture text values from forms, something that is not a huge concern, but you still need to opt into it because there's the chance you could capture PII or sensitive info. So something to be really mindful of as you're going through and setting up event properties. Only set it up on inputs and forms where there's no PII that's going to be captured there. So in this case, I want to capture what a user has selected from this type dropdown when they submit this form. So I'm going to create an event property. We'll call it type name. And then I'm going to, using our target mode, select which element I want to capture a value from. In this case, this type dropdown. And then I'm also going to choose what value that exists in that element that I want to capture as the event property. So in this case, it's the inner text. One really cool feature within setting up event properties is this preview. This helps validate that you're setting this up correctly. If I change this opportunity field to contact, for example, I can see in real time that the value of the property that will be captured gets updated. So that gives me confidence that I've set this up correctly. I'll apply this, then I would save this feature. And then from this point forward, whenever someone submits this form, Pendo is also going to capture the value that they've chosen from this type dropdown. So that's how you set up event properties. I know we want to keep this relatively interactive. I'll take a quick pause there to see if there's any questions on the setup process before I show how you can leverage event properties in Pendo's analytics.
The one comment in the chat was that it's worth mentioning that you have to be an admin to create an event property.
Yep.
So highlight.
So that is something, and yeah, we can always follow up with documentation, but to set up event properties, you'll go to, or to enable event properties, you'll just go to subscription settings as an admin, go into the application. That actually, it's not even in the application, it's just in this view. And under the general settings, there's click event properties, and then you'd have the button would say enabled until you've enabled it, and then you're able to disable. So really easy to set those up, or at least turn them on in your subscription, and then be able to leverage them.
Perfect. And someone also asked about what's a good common use case for collecting field data like this into Pendo? Is it user segmentation?
Great question to segue into where event properties manifest in the Pendo UI. So one area is running Data Explorer reports. So I already created one here, but we have our Add New Form OK button as the main feature that we're tracking clicks on for this custom Data Explorer report. But what you can also do is group those clicks by event property. So in this case, I've selected our Add New Type event property, and then I ran this report. I updated the chart type to donut, and I can see, of all the users that submitted that form over the last 30 days, what was the attribution of the different type dropdown options there. So that's one example. There's a lot of different use cases, but attribution is probably going to be the top one. Search results or search queries are another one. You can set up an event properties for a search field, and then when someone, you track whenever someone conducts a search, but then you'd be able to pass back what are they searching for. In that case, you'd likely want to maybe export that to another tool to run an analysis of, what are the most common search terms, things like that. But we have that set up as well within our demo instance. So whenever someone clicks the search button, we also capture what they've searched. Really easy to download this as a CSV and then upload it to another tool to just run some queries or trend analysis on. So those are a few use cases of why you might want to capture event properties. On the segmentation front, you can also define segments to add as filters to reports based off event properties. So I can create a segment here, and maybe I want to show any user who has clicked that OK submit button, but then I can also add an event property filter here, where in this case, it would only be users who have submitted that form with that account type defined. Jim's question around, can event properties work with only specific field types? No, so they actually don't even need to be field types. Event properties are really just anything that exists on the app that Pendo can see and then capture when an action happens. I want to be totally transparent. There are some nuances with event properties. Like if you have a number of different cards on a search results page and you want to capture some value from only the card that someone selects, we have some logic where if you set up an event property, we look for the nearest value from where an action happens. So it doesn't just have to be anything from a form dropdown or a type field. It can just be like the title of a card that you set up as the property to capture. So the use cases, again, are pretty endless there, as long as it's some value that Pendo has visibility to on the page of your application when an action occurs. Before I transition to roles and surveys, and Aaron also checked me on time too, I'll just quickly touch on event properties with track events. So to recap, track events are backend, client-side, server-side, API-driven events that you would intentionally pass to Pendo. When you set up a track event, you can configure event properties for that track event. So this is really straightforward. And that is for some more, I guess, I like to call them like count of use cases. So maybe you have a track event with someone saves a page and you want to return, or saves a table and you want to return the number of columns that exist in that table when someone saves it. That would be a great event property use case for a track event, where you set up the track event as table saved, and then a property of that is number of columns in the table, as an example. Caleb's question, we really want this as well. Hopefully it'll be coming soon. I know there's an existing feature request that we're tracking for using event properties to target guides off of. Not available today, but we'll make sure to maybe try to circulate that feature request in our feedback tool after the call, so everyone who wants that can also add their name to it. Great. All right, so I'm going to now transition to my next topic, which is deploying surveys and polls to help fill in gaps in metadata. We use this internally at Pendo as well. When you first created your Pendo account, you would have seen a survey pop up saying, hey, what's your role? We serve a number of different personas at our customers, whether it's product, design, customer success. Our roles in Pendo are defined as, admin, read-only, guide builders. So that doesn't really help us know, what our users care most about or what use cases they care about. So we deploy that survey to then target specific guides to you that might pertain to a customer success use case versus a product management use case. So what that looks like in Acme CRM, we do have a poll here, a survey that says, what's your role? This is a sales tool. So we have account executive, SDR. A user would respond with this. And then what I'm able to do is then create a segment based off of how someone might respond to that poll or survey. So I can add a role. In this case, it's going to be a poll response for the role survey. And then maybe I only want to return anyone that answers account executive. And then I can show some really tailored messaging to account executives within our platform there. So that wraps up what I wanted to cover. And Stephen, yes, that role, its survey itself is a guide. So when you go to build a guide and add a building block, there are a number of different poll and survey types. And there's one for kind of that drop-down survey.
Nice. And then would you be able to share that feedback request so everybody can go in and upvote it?
For sure. Yeah, I'll try to grab the link and drop it in the Zoom chat after I'm done sharing. Yeah, so that wraps up everything I wanted to show.
Yep,
and
we have one
Aaron,
more
I guess
question for you. Yep.
Yep.
So with the poll hack, the submissions don't actually become metadata that exists separate from the guide. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So this is meant to fill in gaps in metadata that you have. You could always then export the survey results and then add them as metadata to your customer database to then pass back to Pendo and kind of create that feedback loop there. But if I go into the role survey that we've created in our demo instance, this is one we just saw, and then I'm able to see the poll activity over a certain date range to see, what the distribution of how people are answering to this poll is, and then able to export all of the results either via CSV or via API.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well,
All right. Thanks for all those questions. Yeah.
Yeah. He'll stick around a little if you have any last minute questions, but definitely share that so everyone can upvote for the feedback request. So awesome. So next up we have Megan, and she's going to go and take it from here.
All right. So I'm Megan. Nice to meet y'all. I'm a sales engineer here at Pendo. I'm going to talk today about NPS, but a little more specifically, how we can use segmentation to get maybe some deeper product insights to see what may be driving that positive or negative score. So you'll see here, we're back in Acme CRM, like Zach showed. This is just our fictitious demo environment. But as Pendo users, I'm sure you're all familiar with our NPS score here. This very common, how likely are you to recommend us question. You can even ask a very specific follow-up question based off of the score users gave you. So within Pendo, there's of course a lot you can dig into analytics wise. But like I said, I want to look specifically at how we can create some segments and maybe find out what's driving this sentiment. So if you haven't taken a look at this particular chart here on NPS, I'd highly recommend it. This is a great place to start if we really want to dig in. What we're looking at is page or feature usage based off of the percentage of promoters and detractors interacting with it. So we've got our not quite anymore center axis here, now that I've zoomed in. And everything we're seeing on the right side is pages that more promoters on average spend time on. And everything here on the left side is where detractors are spending time. So, oh yeah, that Zoom. Cool tip, guys. This Zoom, whether we're looking at the visitor timeline or any chart like this here, you can click and drag, and it makes these very kind of small lines or circles a lot easier to read here. And if you hover, you'll get some more information too, just about the actual numbers going into these calculations. But so we can see here, everything on our promoter side, we're probably real comfortable with. We can be pretty confident that these are working fine, but we might want to take a look here at what's on more of the left side. So we see some themes coming through with our product areas. We've got some opportunities areas within Acme CRM that our detractors seem to spend more time on. And even though they're little, we've got some contacts areas too. So these are probably places where we really want to start maybe digging into those areas and finding out maybe something more about what's going on this page. So this is where we can start to run some of our behavior reports and maybe see if we see some themes arise. So if we take a look at our contacts page, that's not quite what I wanted to see here. We want to take a look at our contacts funnel. And within our demo environment, I can tell you there's just not a ton of functionality on that contacts page. So we're really taking a look at this funnel of how do we get a user from the contacts page to the details of our specific contact. It's really the only workflow we have. And with this user funnel, we can see, everybody, we have people dropping off here at the very second step. But to get really specific about who we're looking at, let's make a segment of just our detractors. So just like we saw with the user role survey poll, we'll create a segment based off of a poll response. And we want to take a look at our detractors. So anyone who's rated us a 6 or lower. And actually, I want to go a step further with it too, and say maybe only users whose last visit was within the last 30 days or so. We want to take a look only at our active detractors. If people don't like our app because they're not using it, they just need to come and play around with it more. So we've got our active detractors here. And when we run this here, really we're going to see for this environment, probably pretty similar to everyone. But we do see we have a lot of users dropping off on the second step here. There's clearly some struggles within our contacts page and users understanding this workflow. So this is a really great place to start. Maybe you want to go build out some onboarding. And there's a good example in here, actually, that I found mostly when I was looking for a report to show today, specific to our opportunities page, which was that other area that we saw on that first chart with the pages. So with our opportunities, what you can do is you could create 2 different funnels and you could really target a guide to these users, maybe specifically the NPS detractors and also the ones who are active. So we can take a look at this funnel before a particular guide, and then we could run this exact same funnel, maybe a certain amount of time after that guide's been presented and really compare that usage. But actually, for the sake of time here, one path that I love to show, particularly when it comes to promoters versus detractors, but really I feel like it's universally applicable. We built a reverse path here where we wanted to see all of the different ways users got to our help button. And when we take a look at the everyone segment, maybe our accounts page could use a little bit of help, but let's go back to that active detractors group that we were looking at. My internet will catch up with me here. All right. So here we can actually see that accounts surely, has some help clicks, but this contacts page is really bubbling up to the top. So that is pretty in line with that original chart that we saw. So we've got an issue here with our contacts page. We really want to create some onboarding guides, reach out to these users, make sure it's as easy to navigate as possible. And of course, it's important to, always to set a baseline of how users currently are. And then once we've taken some action, maybe given an onboarding guide to our detractors having issues with contacts page, compare how that usage goes afterwards. Have they increased their NPS score? Are they still a detractor? I think it's always a good idea too. You could target a segment of detractors with an additional survey in the app, just trying to validate these themes that you're seeing. If they're on the contacts page, maybe you want to hit them with an open text. Are you struggling, or do you have any questions about this area? But one final thing I wanted to show, if you want to get really NPS crazy, you could create a dashboard that's very specific to behavior of promoters versus detractors. And that way you don't necessarily have to kind of run all of these different reports separately, try to remember what you saw. So our top two widgets are really, of course, just about taking a look at those NPS scores overall, what that distribution is. But what we're seeing here is actually exactly the same widgets, but very specifically segmented towards promoters and detractors. So we can, see the difference here. Luckily, we've got fewer detractors than promoters. But we can also start to see how their overall interaction differs. We can see here, it's a little misleading the way the chart height is, but our promoters are really spending almost twice as much time in our application as our detractors, which is kind of in line with what we think we might see. And we can get even more specific when we start to look at core event usage. So these, the real features very representative of the value in your application. And this particular report was just pulled from Data Explorer, but we're taking a look at these first core events, our add new form OK button, the dashboard shortcut, and then our added new opportunity. And we can see across the board, our promoters are definitely spending more time with these core features than our detractors are. It's pretty clear our detractors aren't just not spending time in the app, but they're not getting to the value that's really important to keep them there. And to dig even deeper into that, I love our time to first use core events widget. And to take a look at promoters versus detractors, there's actually a pretty big difference to see here. A lot of times, on average, it's taking our detractors almost twice as long to get to these core events. So 3.4 days for the promoters, 6.2 for our detractors. And that's pretty consistent across the top few core events we're seeing here. And this is a problem. This really does validate the idea that we need our users to find that value as quickly as possible, or they're going to lose interest. They won't spend as much time, or they'll just misunderstand the real value in the application. Especially if we're doing a free trial and it's only 7 days, well, these users aren't going to see that value within that time frame. So of course, there's a lot of different lenses you could take comparing promoter and detractor behavior. This was just a couple paths you could go through. But I think it's important not just to gather that sentiment, but really know from a product usage standpoint, how can you change that? All right, I'm just checking our chat here to see if we have any outstanding questions.
I think you could have just presented how to zoom in and everyone would have been really happy. So that was awesome.
That was a trick. It took me forever to find. It made a lot of those charts a lot easier to read.
Nice. Well, awesome. Well, Megan, if you stick around, there may be some other questions in the chat, but that was awesome and great way to, I know a lot of people know they need to launch an NPS, but don't really know what to do once they've done that. So those were really great tips. All right, so next up we have Cross.
Cool, thanks, Aaron. So yeah, just want to talk about two things that some of you might know, some of you might not know. And so hopefully these two hacks will make your life a lot easier by using Pendo. So the first one is our metadata page. And so most of you probably know what metadata is, but if not, let's quickly review. Metadata is typically attributes about your visitor or accounts. Metadata has a couple of different groups when you assign them to Pendo. So metadata can come from the agent or the code snippet. Metadata can be custom within Pendo. metadata can also be pulled through Salesforce integration or Segment.io. Once you pass that metadata into Pendo, there's a couple of different types about your metadata. So it can be in text, Boolean, numbers, date, or lists. So how do I know what properties and values to use in my reports and segments? Because all these things matters. How do I actually drill down into my customer? How do I actually target specific guides to specific users? Well, today, some of you guys might be going back to the data mappings page and just kind of taking a guess at what properties or values being sent in there. Some of you might be going to the visitors or account page and then adding your own columns for that metadata field, and then using the values inside of those things, or just building a report out. Is there an easier way, you might be asking? Well, there is. So if each and every one of you guys don't know, you can go to app.pendo.io/metadata. When you go here, it actually corrects itself and puts the subscription ID in there for you. So it'll take you to the right page. But the benefit to this metadata page is you can easily see the different properties and values that gets associated with the things that you're passing into Pendo. You can distinguish like what values are unique, how many users are tied to those values. You can also see the events that are connected to those different properties and value that's been adding up over your subscription here. You can also take that metadata and add it as a dashboard widget. So this way you can keep an eye on that metadata as your application grows, as your user base grows, to see if those properties or values extend more or gets added additionally in the future. Right now, it only shows you metadata values that are being passed through the agent in Salesforce. So unfortunately, if you guys are using custom data in there, you will see the property as the custom data, but the values might not appear inside of it. So just to show you a demo here, this is my subscription. And like I mentioned before, you would have to go to either your visitors page and then add in those columns so that you can see additional information about who the persona or information are. But here, if you just go to metadata, and then down here, you will have a list of all the different metadatas you guys are passing into Pendo. And so here, I'm just choosing my persona one. And underneath persona, I see the different values that are populating under that. How many visitors that went into my application has that value populated into them. And then here on the top, right, I can then add that value into my dashboard. At the bottom, it shows me all the unique values. This way, it makes building segments a lot easier. You know exactly what to use when you're building your segment out. So when you build your segment based on persona, you can say equals to, and then you can just copy from this text here and then put it into that box there, exactly how to spell, and you should get your segment there. I'll pass it to Clint.
Before we do that, there was one question is a lot of people are wanting this in app. So we're going to share that feedback request form too. But someone was asking, is there a way to group by report on a metadata value that is part of a metadata value with data type list int? Does that make sense?
Okay, let me go back and read that for myself here. Okay, so you mean using group by in the Data Explorer based on the metadata value?
Yes.
So typically, yes, you should be able to group by the metadata value. However, if that property is generating over 500 different unique values, then we won't allow you to use the group by function. So as long as that property is generating 500 values or less, then you should be able to group the Data Explorer or the report by the values.
Perfect. All right, Clint, show us what you got.
You got it. All right. So I know that I see some familiar faces actually on this call. Shout out, Kaylin. So you already know this one. I know some of you might know this, but I want to show you one of the #1 things I recommend all my customers to download the Pendo tagging aid. So what if the CSS selector Pendo finds for my feature isn't specific enough? We've all been there. We try to tag a feature and all of a sudden we get one of these things on the right hand side. So shout out Hannah for allowing me to use this slide here. But on the left, these are the good tags, of course, you want to look for a feature. Specific, identifiable, and knowing exactly what this feature represents. Save message button. I know that has to do with the save message button. but how many of us have been on the right-hand side where we look and we see something like an nth child, maybe something like the A contains you have 16 new messages, and even that lovely dynamic class name down there at the very bottom. These are not ideal and not areas that we would recommend you use when it comes to tagging a feature with Pendo itself. So enter the tagging aid here. So what is it? If you have not had the chance to use it, it is a tool intended to find multiple different CSS selectors that you can leverage when it comes to feature tagging. All you have to do is basically treat it exactly like you're about to tag a feature. You'll see a little dotted line around this, and don't worry, I will demo this momentarily, and it will show you all the relevant attributes. What's a really cool that might be overlooked first to use this is that there actually is an ability to use it to create advanced feature rule sets, like making sure you want to say, hey, if it at least contains this, I want to be able to track this feature. So that's really helpful overall for your app. And of course, it's completely free to use for you. So there's a direct download to the tagging aid for you to go and access it. We will send you this following the call, and you can go and access this moving forward. So this is a step-by-step process of what I'll be walking through here today during the demonstration about how exactly you can use it. I'm not going to read you through everything on this slide deck, but really all this is going through is just telling you point, click, and allow yourself to copy that rule and put it over into your rule field as well. There is a really fun fact about this using the tagging aid, and for all of my lovely folks who are doing a lot of guides and feature tagging, you can actually open the designer directly using the tagging aid itself. This is a big time saver that I recommend all my customers consider to think about. And really at the end of the day, it's going to save you a lot of time, not only from tagging, but from creating guides. Cool. So let's give you a little bit of a demonstration of this here. So I have my subscription open in a separate window, and this is a requirement when it comes to what I'm about to demo for you. How do I go ahead from here? And if I click on this, you see that now there's an option here where it says launch the Pendo designer itself. Right? So as I open that on the side, you do see that they have the ability to open any of the guides that I currently have active. I can go ahead and open, and then up here on the top left, you have the ability to launch whatever you need in order to launch this. So for this instance, I want to work on tagging. So now I can go ahead and click on that. And I already have my designer open to begin the tagging process. I tagged the log out feature here to give you an example. So if any of you, particularly maybe you have text capture turned off, for example, inside of your application or your subscription itself, what you'll find is that sometimes Pendo, when you go to tag it like this, it either just do like a drop down item, not pull in it contains. So we're not really pulling in the information we need. So this is where having the tagging aid and leveraging this really comes into play. So if we're to launch the tagging aid, what you'll see, and like I mentioned, it works exactly like our tagger. If I was just to hover over an element, and specifically the log out button right over here. Sorry, all your lovely faces are on the way. So if I were to go ahead and just click on there now, what you'll see is now I have the ability to select all of these different features and elements or the CSS selectors that are related to it and be able to test it. So coming back to this example, maybe I don't want to use the dropdown. I can now use a data target, which now I know exists, and I can even add that as a custom attribute, for example. And now that it's there, I can click test, and it'll directly tell me how many match the rule. So you're getting the addition of Pendo telling you, or the tagging aid telling you how many match the rule specifically here on this page where you're currently at, and even allows you, now that I have this, I can just quickly copy and paste it over here as well. And now I have an updated rule that I can leverage on this side here. Okay. I do see that there are some questions coming in. I will make sure that I get those addressed. One final thing that I did want to show here, two things actually, I lied. Always remember that these arrows actually allow you to go up and down based off of what actually you're at inside the DOM itself. So I want to go higher inside the parent element. You're able to do so there. And the second thing to keep in mind, I did mention this inside the slides themselves, there's a little settings cogwheel here. And this does allow you to add any of the advanced attributes that you want to add for specific features themselves. This is very common. Maybe you see like an href, for example, has a really lovely, nasty user ID attached at the very end of that for your URL. You can just say, as long as it contains or begins with, we can use that for a feature tag as well. So very easy to build. All you have to do is say contains, and then you can even adjust the text here. And then as soon as it's all saved, if I just even want to give you a visual example, go ahead and there. And now I have an updated rule that I can place within the tagger. All right, so that's what I wanted to quickly surface and show you here. I do see that there are a list of questions in here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Well, you definitely picked a fan favorite with what you were talking about, because everybody in the chat is saying how they love using it, and everyone's giving each other different tips and ideas. But someone did ask, is there any plan to just incorporate this into the designer directly, or is Pendo moving towards using browser plugins exclusively?
Oh, Derek, my man. We are fighting tooth and nail with product to try to get that in there. I have no timeline or anything like that, but it is a topic of conversation internally. That's all I'll say on that. But
got it. Someone also was asking, is there any way to stop it from opening the legacy designer? And Liz gave a tip, but I just wasn't sure if you could maybe show how to do that.
yeah, I'm not sure
Right.
about that. Is Eric, you're noticing that when you do that, the legacy designer itself is directly opening? Come off mute if you don't mind.
Yeah, I might be actually confusing the legacy designer with that list of guides because it looks like a similar design, possibly.
It does. It looks very, very similar. That left on the left itself. Those are all guides that were built within the current Visual Design Studio. So if I were to click on them, they would open normally, like in our current Visual Design. But I did see Lay put +1 to Eric, so maybe something else is happening there, and I want to be clear.
Nice. Well, Clint, that was awesome. So thank you for highlighting that. So last up, last but not least is Hannah. So you all probably know Hannah from our Pendo Academy, and she gives great lessons on all these things that were just highlighted here. So Hannah, take it away.
Yes. Hey, everyone. I love my fans. Thank you so much. So let me show you some things, because we have something new in Academy as of today, as of like an hour ago. And I'm very excited to show you. So currently right now, if you've never been to Academy, you should go to it. There's a lot of free stuff in there. Right now, though, we've got a lot of content that is definitely based around how to. So when you're trying to learn Pendo on your own, or trying to get all your teammates ramped up on things who aren't a part of onboarding, the Pendo for web apps and Pendo for mobile, Pendo for feedback, those are great how-to courses where you can look up something specific, like how to tag, and you'll be able to get that information. You can also become Pendo certified in here. I know some of you already are Pendo certified, and we have 2 different ways you can do, or technically 3 different ways you can do a certification. If you've already done the Pendo for web apps, which is the free course, you can just sign up for the exam part. However, sometimes people don't learn by watching videos, and I totally get that. So we do have an instructor-led version of the class as well. And you will get the certification exam with that ticket to the instructor-led class. And then we have this Pendo Essentials on Demand. It's $200. And the difference between Pendo Essentials on Demand and Pendo for web apps is on demand will have 2 office hours that are instructor led. So the whole thing's not instructor led. It's still on demand. You're going to the lessons, you're going through them on your own time, but there are checkpoints that you get where you can check in with a human and other fellow students. And then the exam is included in that as well. But the thing that I really wanted to show you all today, we now have a new section of courses called Pendo by Persona. So this is kind of like the next iteration of Academy, where things are going to be a little bit more prescriptive, so to speak. So basically, instead of saying, here are how to do a million things in Pendo. Now what the experience is going to be is, let's say you're on the product team, you can say, yeah, how do product people use Pendo? And you're going to be able to come here and look up specific use cases for this. Now, don't get too excited. Not all of these are ready yet. So we've got one for promoting features that just went live. You can go in here, see that there's videos in there. One of our teammates named Sam, who's in London, he's in our London office. He recorded these videos for us. So you get like a nice little British accent, a break from my Southern accent. So if you're sick of my voice on these, you'll get a nice break with these sets of videos. But we are implementing Pendo guides right now. So I use Pendo on top of our Pendo Academy. So for user onboarding and deflecting support tickets, if you click on these things, they're not ready yet, but this is a Pendo poll where I'm going to keep track of everyone who wants to stay subscribed to this. And once we do push these live, I will notify you. So I'll probably do an app in Pendo, and then I'll probably may do a follow-up email too. So you will stay notified for this. And then we are currently actively working on the other two personas, which is Pendo for customer success and Pendo for marketing. And we're going to have some of our success teammates and our marketing people do some videos and have some content in there for us. So I hope you check it out and hang in there with me while I get these things ready, but they should be all coming out in the next few weeks or so. Okay, let's see. Hold on. Anything in the chat?
No, everyone is very excited about this. And,
Okay.
so yeah, this is great.
Perfect.
Thanks, Anna. Everyone go check out the Pendo Academy. It is where you registered today. You can access the Pendo Academy as well, as long as also in app within the resource center in Pendo, you can do that as well. So great. So thank you. I'm going to wrap us up, excuse me, with the event here. So other cool stuff, we are trying to grow our G2 reviews. So if you haven't written a review for Pendo on G2, we would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback. We will be following up in this email with the link that directs you to go exactly where you can go and write a review for us. And if you do write a review, you do get a $10 Amazon gift card. The $10 gift card is sent to you whether you give us a good review or a bad review. So give us your feedback on G2. And then we kind of gave our How I Pendo stories and how we utilize Pendo, but we'd love to hear your stories as well. So head over to pendo.io/howipendo, and you will hear some really great quick videos of how people are utilizing Pendo in unique ways, and you can submit your stories as well. Everything that we talked about here is ways that you can get involved. You heard some great information from our professional services, utilizing us for feedback. I know that we used feedback a lot on this call of how you can submit and kind of upvote there, so you can utilize how you can utilize feedback. So utilize your customer success team members if you haven't connected with them already. The best ways that you can get the most out of Pendo. And then the Pendo neighborhood, this is where all of these things exist. So you registered today for this event within the Pendo neighborhood with the event section. Hannah highlighted Pendo Academy and the ways that you can learn. So there's a lot of really great spots within the neighborhood to stay connected and continue the conversation in all these different elements. So we did record this, so we will be sending out the recording post-event. I can't thank enough for all my speakers on the Pendo side for coming and giving those amazing tips. It seems like people really enjoyed the session. Please fill out the survey that we send out. It gets sent out automatically within like 20 to 30 minutes after this event. If you liked hearing these hacks from the Pendo team, we'll be sure to incorporate those from Pendoramas moving forward, and just ways that we can improve this the way that you want this event to go. This is really all for you, and we want to make sure that we're providing you the content that you're looking for. So we really appreciate your time and joining us today, and have a great Tuesday.